In part 1 of this video, I will show you the gameplay loop of Oshi Push. In part 2, some deck guide and analysis. So let's begin. First thing you're going to need to do is build a deck. At present, there are 7 persona cards to choose from as your deck leader. Using Pippa as an example, she is a red color card of the Zatsudan type. This means you can only play red cards and or cards of the Zatsudan type in her deck. So that's all red cards, regardless of type, and all Zatsudan cards, regardless of color. You can only have 3 copies of a card at maximum. There are upgrade cards that buff your income per turn and give bonus power or bonus clash reward effects. You may only upgrade to a higher level of the same persona. You cannot go back down to a lesser upgrade, nor can you upgrade to a different persona. So Pippa cannot become Uruka. However, you can use other persona upgrades in your deck purely for their discard effect. When choosing cards, make sure you don't select the cards that are exclusive to a different persona. Here, these cards are for Pipkin Pippa only. Your draw deck is a total of 40 cards, which is a combination of content cards and action cards. Your persona is not one of your 40. However, upgrade cards do make up one of your 40 draw deck cards, so choose carefully how many upgrades you add to your deck. Other than your persona and draw deck, you need a platform card deck of 5 cards. You may only have 1 of each platform. Platforms have a type but no colour. There are cards in the game such as Thriller Story that give bonus effects if played on an independent platform. Plan accordingly. When starting a new game, determine who will go first however you prefer. Add 3 bits as your starting income. Shuffle your draw deck and platform deck. Draw 5 cards. You may choose to redraw your hand once. If you do, place the 5 cards back in your deck, shuffle, and then draw another 5 cards. You're now stuck with an even worse hand. The player going first will reveal their top platform card, then choose to place it in the center. You will then go clockwise, taking turns to place platforms into the center until you have 3. For 2-player games, player 1 places 2 platform cards down essentially. And now we begin the game. First thing you do is choose where you want to place your persona and add that influence, which is the blue star value on the bottom right of the card. Player 1 gets first pick of platform. Player 2 will then place her persona down. We are now entering the content phase. This is the only phase where you can play content cards, unless the content card says otherwise or through card effects. And this is the only time you can upgrade your persona card. You can only play content cards where your persona is placed, unless stated otherwise. If I place Pippa on this platform, I am stuck playing content cards here this round. However, the content cards remain here unless removed by board clear or the platform being taken. The objective of Oshi Push is to win 1 million subscribers from these platform cards. Each round, you clash over all 3 platforms, starting left to right or right to left. The player going first that round gets to pick from which side the clashing starts from. The number of clashes required to win a platform is this blue star value on the bottom left of the card. The subscriber count for winning is this big number on the left. In the top left is the bit cost to play a card. For 2 bits, I'm going to play Courtroom Roleplay and add 4 influence to this platform. There's an effect to add a bonus 3 influence if the opponent has 3 or more cards in their hand. There are other plays I could make, however it is now my opponent's turn. In Oshi Push, you each take turns making an action. You cannot do multiple plays at once. My opponent plays first date for 1 bit, giving them 7 influence on the platform. You will see this card has an activate effect, which allows the person to return a card of 2 bits or less back to the opponent's hand, and it returns this card to the top of the deck. We will get into card effects later, but activate effects can only be played during the content phase or the platform phase. You may not activate cards in your hand. You will have to wait until it's your turn again before you can use it, however. My opponent could use First Date to put Courtroom Roleplay back into my hand. I do not get the bit cost back. As part of the effect, First Date goes back to the top of my opponent's deck. Instead of playing a card, you may choose to pass your turn. If you pass and your opponent makes a play, you get the opportunity to make a play again. The pass isn't locked in for the rest of the round. If you and your opponent choose pass directly after each other, then the game proceeds to the platform phase. You may no longer play content cards at the platform phase unless stated otherwise. You cannot upgrade your persona card either. Most action cards become available for play during the platform phase, and they tend to function as traps or utility cards. We will begin clashing over the platform, starting right to left. You will see debut stream has the discard effect, move your persona to the current platform. Discard effects may only be used from cards in your hand. You cannot discard those on the platform. You may not benefit from discard effects if an opponent uses a discard effect on you, or if you overdraw and need to discard down from the hand limit of 7. So because we're starting from right to left, I can discard debut stream and then move Pippa to this platform, taking her influence away from here and adding it to here. Now it's my opponent's turn. They will pass. With their 0 influence on the platform and my influence on Pippa, I then choose to pass my turn. As we've both passed, and they have 0 influence on the platform against my 4, I win the clash, and I gain 1 popularity on the platform out of the 3 needed to win. As Pippa has a clash reward of gain 1 bit, I will add that to my bank. The platform card itself has an effect that you may choose to take advantage of. With the persona card clash rewards, you can only claim those on clashes where your persona is. Unless I move Pippa back to the left platform, I do not get another bit of currency if I win the clash there. Now the right platform clash has resolved, we cannot fight over it again. However, cards can be moved there from other platforms through special effects. You can use this as a form of soft control. We now clash over the middle platform. We both have 0 influence, therefore it's a draw. No one gains anything. Finally, over on the left platform, if we were to leave things as it is, we have 7 influence each, so it's a tie again. Therefore, no clash rewards are earned. There has to be a clash and you have to win it in order to benefit from any clash rewards. However, Tenma is going to use the activate effect of First Date this turn, moving the FBI card back to my hand and putting First Date back into the deck. Now it's my turn again. I could discard debut stream again, forcing a tie to deny my opponent a popularity and their card draw effect, but I will pass, allowing them to gain 1 popularity and 1 card draw. Now that we've clashed over all 3 platforms, we move on to the refresh phase. The other player now goes first. You return your persona cards back to the studio, you each draw 1 card, and you add the bits of your persona card to your total income. Pippa and Tenma have a base of 3 at the moment, so 3 plus 2 equals 5 for Pippa. If you've drawn more than 7 cards, the hand limit, then during the refresh phase, you must discard back down to 7. If your draw deck is empty, you lose the game. Content cards, if any, will remain where they've been played. If a platform is captured, then all content cards placed on that platform are put into the trash. The other player, in a 2 versus 2, puts down a new platform card. If your opponent has a popularity on a platform card you have taken, they get the popularity added to their bank as bits. So if Tenma has 2 popularity on this platform card, and then Pippa takes the platform, Tenma will get 2 bits back into a bank going into the next round. The winner does not get to convert popularity back into bits. And that's the entire gameplay loop. Repeat until one of you gets 1 million subscribers. Activate. You can only activate cards that are played on the field. You cannot activate the same turn you place a card down. You must wait until after your opponent's turn. You can only activate once per round. Adjust the card to the side to indicate you have used the effect. After the refresh phase, you may use activate cards again. You can only discard a card from your hand and gain its effect if it's done voluntarily. If an opponent uses a discard effect on you, or you use a card that requires you to discard from your hand, you cannot gain the benefit of the discard effect when placed in the trash. To gain the bits from a kickback card, you have to lose the clash on the platform the card is on. You do not gain anything if you tie on influence or if you win the clash. The game has action cards, which must be discarded after use. They generally have a one-time use effect, and most action cards can only be played during a clash. However, some can be used at any time. Make sure you read the text carefully. Upgrade cards can only be used during the content phase. The upgrade card replaces your persona. You don't add the effect of the persona card on top of your original persona. Dominating a platform is not about having more influence than your opponent. Instead, it's about the number of content cards you have on a platform. Here, Pippa has 3 content cards on the platform versus Tenma's 4 content cards. Therefore, Tenma is dominating the platform despite having less influence than Pippa. Tenma is a hybrid deck, featuring combo, mid-range, tempo and control. You can be all 4 archetypes at once, or choose to specialise more in a certain direction. Of all the personas in set 1, I'm of the opinion that Tenma is the strongest deck in the game in its own tier of S+. This is because Tenma has obscene amounts of consistent, massive card draw, whilst also having tremendous control possibility, whilst being able to shut down board hopping, whilst having extremely strong mid-range, whilst also having tremendous economy potential and tremendously powerful late game. Basically, depending on how you've built your deck, Tenma has no weaknesses outside of terrible draw luck in the opening 3 turns and bad piloting. Any deck playing against Tenma is on a sharp time limit. Here's my Tenma Drone Strike deck, which is combo, mid-range and control. Rushing to upgrade your persona isn't very important in this deck. I have 3 copies of Mii-chan, the 3-bit upgrade card, and 3 copies of Fatima, the 8-bit upgrade card. Mii-chan is a relatively weak upgrade, as you only gain 1 extra bit per turn and 2 influence. However, economy is essential to this deck, as I want to play a card called Halloween Special at 8 bits. So I can always discard Mii-chan for extra economy to play something bigger, or if I use the upgrade route, then my route to Halloween Special becomes easier. It also gives me enough income per round to play 2 of my cheaper action cards, or 1 microphone upgrade to draw 2 cards. This deck has huge draw capability, as does any way you build Tenma honestly. The big Tenma is very expensive but very powerful. Huge influence at 11, in ideal circumstances, 6 bits per turn, and if I win a clash, I can draw 2 cards. Sometimes big Tenma can be too slow to use in a game, and given your massive card draw ability, don't be afraid to discard it for the extra economy, as you'll probably see it again soon anyway. The mid-range combo core of my deck is 3 copies of Encore Performance, 3 copies of First Date, 3 copies of Origins Video, 3 copies of Courtroom Roleplay, and 3 copies of Mathstream. The star card here is Origins Video, which is buffed by 2 influence each time you play an experience type card, which is the heart icon. In this lineup, you can see First Date and Courtroom Roleplay synergize with this card, and they're very cheap to play. So a 3-bit card that may reliably rise to 10 to 12 influence is supreme value. First Date can also act as a form of control against aggro decks, given the ability to return a card to my opponent's hand. The fact it goes to the top of my deck isn't really an issue with Tenma because of the card draw. I could also use the effect of First Date to return my own Encore Performance to my hand, allowing me to return a card from my trash to my hand. This synergizes with my powerful action cards, which I may want to immediately return to my hand and use again. As you can see with Yellowfish, you delete a content card with cost less than a number of cards in your hand. So returning a card to my hand potentially allows me to remove a bigger card from my opponent. Or I could use it to buff Fat Q's effect by an extra 1 influence. It's very rare for your opponent to not have 3 cards or less in their hand, therefore Courtroom Roleplay is pretty much a 2-bit 7 influence card, useful at any point in the game. Finally, we have Math Stream. It has no direct synergy with anything in the deck, rather it's there purely to stall aggro decks and ruin NASA decks. NASA will probably be the mainstream meta favourite in the early life cycle of the game. This is because Math Stream increases the cost of opponents' content cards by 1 bit, and 1 single bit can completely ruin plays and swing the tempo around in Oshi Push. NASA's deck revolves around having 0 bits left in the bank, so Math Stream makes it much more difficult to achieve this smoothly, which kills NASA's threat potential immensely. Moving on, we have Mama Cameo and Clip Out of Context. Mama Cameo also buffs Origin's video, its early game presence, and you can activate it to return 2 bits to your bank and return the card to your hand, buffing Tenma's control action cards and allowing you to do something stronger with the refunded currency. Where this really shines is with the Clip Out of Context card here. This card reduces the cost of all content cards on the board by 2 on other platforms. Therefore, if you can play Clip Out of Context, Mama Cameo, unmolested, you will have infinity bits for the rest of the game because you'll continuously gain 1 bit by using the activate effect. And yes, this is a legal combination. Clip Out of Context is such a powerful card influence-wise. You can drop it on a platform and it's probably going to be yours until you've won it anyway. I have 2 copies of Mama Cameo and 2 copies of Clip Out of Context. Finally, we have the real win condition of the deck, Halloween Special. I have 3 copies of this card. Great influence at 14, but the real power is its activate effect, which allows you to play 1 action card from your trash to your hand with 3 bits or less. So I could play Yellowfish, activate Halloween Special, immediately use Yellowfish again for the ultimate removal. And as each Halloween Special can use this activate effect, I have potentially unlimited Yellowfishes. I can also combo this with sponsorship or react meta for infinite card draw and massive economy gain, but I can also use it on Fat Q here. Given Tenma's card draw ability, it's common to have 6 to 7 cards in your hand at all times, so I could play Fat Q to buff my persona or any content card on the board by 6, then Halloween Special for another 6. So for 2 bits I've gained 12 influence. I could also choose to overdraw my hand to gain even higher numbers, buffing the influence further. If I do overdraw and have to trash cards, then I may be able to spam First Dates and Encore Performance to bring them back, preventing decking. Finally, I have Microphone Upgrade. This is purely for emergency card draw and a surprise influence ambush if a clash over a platform early game is close. You may substitute some of these action cards with Succumb to Cringe, which returns 1 content card with 3 or less back to its owner's hand, Beating You for Frying Pan ASMR, which returns all content cards in play to their owner's hand, In Character, which buffs your persona by 4 influence or 7 if it's upgraded, and finally you may also substitute a card with Free Spit. The benefit of Free Spit is that you normally spend 1 bit to gain 1 bit, kind of like discarding an upgrade card. However, if you activate the effect of Halloween Special, then you don't have to pay the bit cost and you just get an immediate 2 bits. So you may wish to replace Sponsorship, which will give you 3 bits if you win a clash reward, and instead use Free Spit for an immediate guaranteed 2 bits. The choice is yours. You'll notice I have no ways to move Tenma to other platforms in this deck. Normally, if you have a clash reward persona, you want the ability to move them elsewhere. I'm okay with keeping Tenma static, as I have Yellowfish, Fat Q, and a platform deck built around a high subscriber, high clash win platform list, which will mitigate the issues. I have 3 copies of Fat Q, 3 copies of Yellowfish, 2 copies of Sponsorship, 2 copies of React Meta, and 2 copies of Microphone Upgrade. NASA is an aggro tempo control combo deck. I would rate her at S tier. Like Tenma, Nasa has consistent, huge card draw possibility, but unlike Tenma, she has to pay for it with her persona upgrades, allowing you to spend bits to draw a card. She also has this busted card called I'll Crush You, which, if you win the clash, allows you to look at the top 3 cards of your deck, spend bits to play a card to any platform, paying its bit cost regularly, and you can then put the cards back on top of your deck in any order. Not only does this allow you to easily spread wide across the platforms, surprising and overwhelming your opponent, but you know what you're going to draw and when over the next couple turns, so you can plan accordingly. Nasa is the unique deck. She gets a bonus to her influence if you have 0 bits, and this is something you really want to take advantage of, supported by her persona discards that allow you to move to other platforms. Because of this effect, you want to keep the cards in your deck divisible by 2 and 3. So here's my Nasa Crush deck, revolving around reducing my opponent's influence to make value snipes with Vomit Drawer, card removal, and potentially win the influence war on platforms with weaker, cheaper cards, as I assume I will be using her card draw effect, often limiting me to 3 bits or less. Nasa's top upgrade is only 6 bits and gives you income per turn of 6, which is incredibly strong. Nasa is an unstoppable killing machine that will tempo out of control if you manage to play her top upgrade by turn 2. Easily achievable if you just don't play anything for the first 2 rounds. So I have 3 copies of it to maximise my chances of drawing it. If I do draw duplicates, the discard effect allows me to move to another platform and utilise her incredibly strong influence rating to turn Nasa into Smaug from Lord of the Rings. I only have 2 copies of her lesser upgrade. The economy isn't great. The activate effect isn't great either, but it is a 3-bit 9 influence card that I could also discard to move to another platform and bully my opponent, so it's worth 1 to 2 copies. I have 3 copies of Mass Stream to stall the game, and it can be played after Nasa's activate effect. 3 copies of Edgelord Behaviour, as this deck features influence reduction, potentially allowing me to delete a much bigger content card. 3 copies of Dog Food Regret to reduce opponent's influence. 3 copies of Stargazing for 1-bit 6 influence is absurdly powerful value-wise, and 3 copies of Marshmallows to help cycle through my deck. In the next tier, I have 3 copies of Thriller Story Reading. My Nasa deck features all independent platforms, which are usually high subscriber count, high clashing required to win. 3 of these cards may be too much. However, the card effect allows me to move all opposing content cards to another platform. I can use this as a form of soft control to force my opponent off the major platforms I want to win to rush that 1 million subscriber count. With my Nasa deck, I try to win the game by dominating 2 platforms, ignoring smaller platforms if practical. I have used Thriller Story Reading to defeat Armchair Expert's oppressive Tenma Balls deck. It really is a realistic lifesaver. I'm sorry, Armchair. You're about to see the next level of cerebral play.
Okay.
For 4 bits, I play
Thriller
Story Reading, and I'm going to move all of it to Phase Weekly.
Damn. Okay, that's actually really cool. All right. Fuck. Okay. Nice.
Yes, it worked. Next, we have 3 copies of Craft Show. You'll notice there's no mid-range in this deck really, so I included Craft Show due to its high influence count of 20, and it limits everyone to being able to only play 1 content card per turn. This makes things much more difficult to match Nasa's influence levels due to the strength of her persona at 0 bits and the power of this card itself. It also shuts down combo potential from Tenma or any deck really. However, it does make you weaker against Uruka, and it can actually hurt you for reasons we'll go into later. It's especially powerful when I'm nuking opponents' influence levels with cards like Dog Food Regret, and the next card in the list, Dragon D's. I have 3 copies of Dragon D's, and it reduces the influence of an opponent's content card by 4. And at the start of the refresh phase, I can return the card to my hand, allowing me to add 12 influence to a platform guaranteed each round. At 6 bits, you can spend all your bits to play it just from the economy refresh from NASA's top upgrade. For the action cards, I have 3 copies of Vomit Drawer. Vomit Drawer allows you to delete one opposing content card with 6 influence or less. So with Dragon D's and Dog Food Regret, I could delete very powerful cards. Next, we have 3 copies of I'll Crush You, 0 bits. As mentioned before, you can use this card effect to see the future of your card draws, adjust it advantageously, but you can also use it to spread NASA wide across many platforms in a tempo move to pressure your opponent. This also synergizes with React Meta's card draw effect. I have 2 copies of React Meta. You could remove 1 Thriller Story and have 3 React Metas. Finally, we have No Show. For each bit you spent to play this card, choose 1 opposing content card on this platform to lose -3 influence this clash. So if I used 3 bits, it reduces a content card by 9 influence. This synergizes with the rest of my influence reduction cards, Vomit Drawer and Edgelord Behavior, to combo a hard control of big cards. The other benefit of No Show is that I can choose how many bits I want to spend. If I've ruined my bit curve and I'm struggling to get down to 0 bits, I can use this card to correct my economy. Then we have my favourite deck to play from an enjoyment perspective, Fujikura Uruka, the Comeback Bear. Uruka is a duck and cover combo control deck I would rank at A tier. Uruka's gimmick is around having only 1 content card on a platform. Therefore, the deck is built around a core of a small number of very powerful content cards. She has action cards that help force this gimmick, like Bear With Me, that will discard all content cards on a platform for each player, leaving them with only 1. Uruka plays like Season 1 Ramp Druid from Hearthstone. I have 2 copies of Urufu and 3 copies of Gomi Kuma. Uruka's Persona discard is an awful effect at only 2 influence, so it sucks really bad to draw duplicates of these, especially as Uruka barely has any card draw. However, economy is critical to playing this deck effectively, and a 3-bit 9 influence Persona card allows you to bully your opponent's early game and establish some kind of a presence, particularly when paired with In Character at a 7 influence gain for 1 bit. Gomi Kuma is almost the I win button if you manage to use it without destroying your own tempo. 7-bit cost, 6-bit gain per turn, 11 influence if you only have 1 content card on Uruka's current platform, but it allows you to activate delete 1 content card on this platform to draw 2 cards, making it easier to maintain that 1 content card gimmick. Sounds painful to delete your own cards, right? But I'll show you how I've turned this into a strength. For early game presence and utility, I have Encore Performance, 2 copies of Encore Performance. It's a prime candidate for the discard, gain 2 cards, but it also allows me to return 1 card from my trash to my hand, so I can return any of the action cards, or even return a background, Dogs Barking, that I'll be discarding to move Uruka to other platforms. 2 copies of Original Song, Clash Reward, draw a card, discard a card. This is to cycle through my deck to get to the goodies quicker and establish some form of early game presence if I'm not drawing well. Then we have 2 copies of In Character for some surprise attack influence buffs. Now we move on to the ramp. We have 3 copies of Christmas Special. When you play a content card with 4 or more on any platform, gain 1 bit. So as I'll be playing a lot of very big cards, I'll be benefiting from this card quite often. Next, we have 3 copies of Free Spit, the most essential and powerful card in Uruka's deck. You really want to have this in your first 2 turns if possible. Spend 1 bit, gain 2 bits, and if your persona is Uruka, next content card this round costs 1 less. Finally, 2 copies of Sponsorship. Clash Reward, gain 3 bits. Stick it on one of your early game cards to ramp and hopefully play a big content card that you'll bully your opponent with the rest of the game. Now let's get to the core of the deck, the big cards, starting with my favourite card in the game, Halloween Special. Let's say you have a stock Uruka gaining 3 bits per turn. If you have Free Spit and Halloween Special in your hand, you can play Halloween Special by turn 3. Past turn 1, gain 3 bits. By the beginning of round 2, you'll now have 6 bits. You can now play Free Spit, you lose a bit, gain 2, so you're now at 7 bits, and Halloween Special now costs 7 to play. Place Halloween Special down on turn 2 with its whopping 14 influence, then you can activate Halloween Special hopefully, and then use Free Spit again to immediately gain 2 bits and reduce the cost of your next content card by 1 bit this round. As long as Halloween Special is up, you can keep gaining this effect. More Free Spits and Halloween Specials, the more economy you have. Now everything is super cheap, and the discount from Free Spits compounds. To counteract all the discarding in this deck, I have Cover Song. Cover Song allows you to spend however many bits to play one creative content card from your trash and place it onto the platform Cover Song currently is. So you can pull off all sorts of neat tricks of this. I could use Gomukuma's discard effect, gain 2 cards by discarding Encore Performance, then when I put Encore Performance in my trash, I can then use the activate effect of Cover Song to bring Encore Performance back into the field, and because I'm technically playing it, I can then use Encore Performance's return 1 card from your trash to your hand effect at the same time. So now my trash essentially becomes a second draw deck, and I can control what I'm returning to my hand. As I'm activating Halloween Special for Free Spit, I will always have enough bits to play Encore Performance again. I could also use Cover Song's activate effect during the platform phase to resurrect a powerful content card in my trash to surprise overpower my opponent that I'm clashing with as long as I have enough income. If Halloween Special is discarded for whatever reason, I could also bring back Halloween Special. You will notice that every content card in this deck is of the creative type, so everything can be resurrected by Cover Song. So I have 3 copies of Halloween Special, 2 copies of Cover Song. I could play Cover Song with the economy from one of Uruka's small upgrades and 1 Free Spit, so it's very easy to play. Urufu at 4 bits per turn plus Free Spit will reduce Cover Song to 5 bits, and therefore with Free Spit's bonus 1 I'll have 5 bits. I have 3 copies of the Cringe Song, which is 5 bits, 8 influence, reduce all other content cards on this platform by 3 influence. It helps buff my gimmick even more, making this a 5-bit 11 influence card at minimum, scaling by an extra 3 influence for each extra content card my opponent plays on the platform. Also easy to play at Uruka's lowest upgrade and 1 Free Spit. We have 5 copies of Craft Show, a very powerful card, but it limits both sides to playing 1 content card per round whilst in play. I'm not playing that many content cards as Uruka really, so this benefits me more than the other personas in the game. However, playing this ruins my Cover Song combination, so I have to choose the right time to play it. My last content card is Masterpiece, the Uru Furby. Clash reward, steal 1 influence from an opponent on this platform. I have 1 copy of this card, and this is why it's called the Comeback Bear. If I'm too slow to activate my machine and start dumping powerful content cards early game, this will allow me to swing the platform popularity back in my favour. For my action cards, I've got My Time, 3 copies of it. My Time allows me to move a content card to this platform during a clash. Using My Time to drag my large content cards across platforms is much cheaper and faster than dropping a new massive content card each time. I can also combine My Time with Halloween Special to bring it back an infinite amount of times. This card also synergizes with Background Dogs Barking, as I can discard Background Dogs Barking to move Uruka to the same place as My Time, turning Uruka into a cruise missile. As Background Dogs Barking is a content card, I can play it as an emergency content card for mid-game presence. I have 2 copies of Background Dogs. I have 2 copies of Bear With Me, which forces each player to choose 1 content card on this platform and then delete all the others. Synergizes with Uruka's bonus, My Time, Background Dogs Barking, and infinite uses with Halloween Special. This allows me to smash aggro and swarm decks who have committed a lot of content cards to a platform. Finally, we have 2 copies of Diss Track, which can also be played for free by Halloween Special. Reduce the influence of an opposing content card to 0 for this clash. It's very easy to force a 1 vs 1 with the Uruka deck, so I combined this card with Bear With Me, My Time, Background Dogs Barking to win any 1 vs 1 with another persona. For my final meta deck, I have Pipkin Pippa Rabbit deck. I don't call this the Rabbit deck because Pippa is a rabbit, Rather, it's the rabbit deck because it's all about hopping around platforms to take advantage of the clash reward bits to play big cards very quickly and overwhelm my opponent before they can stomp me. Then if I do run out of steam, I can potentially snipe the win by using Potion to move a persona card or content card away from my platform, combined with Big Cheese to suddenly gain another 1 to 2 popularity as I dominate the platform. Pippa is an A rank deck and is of the aggro tempo combo deck type. I have 2 copies of Philippa Pipkin. Pippa's upgrade sucks when you're just using the discard effect like Uruka. However, Pippa will snowball out of control immediately if you're able to upgrade her and get that economy machine going. The benefits of Philippa Pipkin is, assuming you win a clash, 6 bits around, and 6 is the magic number for Pippa. I then have 3 copies of Yabbit in my deck. You really want to upgrade Yabbit as soon as possible and try to get it in your opening hand if possible. 6 bit cost, so you can skip 1 turn and play it on turn 2, gain 5 bits a turn, and then each clash you win gain a bonus 3 bits. Now imagine hopping Pippa around and winning multiple platform clashes, gaining a bonus 6 to 9 bits plus the 5 after 1 round. To help achieve this, we have 3 copies of Debut Stream. This can be played as an emergency content card to try and dominate the platform, but really you want to discard this to win clashes and gain lots of money basically. I bring the Sudden Clips platform card in my deck so that I can bring Debut Stream back and potentially use it again the same platform phase. We then have 3 copies of Pippa the Ripper. 6 bits, 10 influence, clash reward. You may gain 1 content card with 3 bits or less on Pippa's platform for free. So because you're hopping Pippa around, you can use the clash reward from this to swarm the platforms with cards and tempo or aggro out of control very early. So most of my other content cards are of 3 bits or less to play, and I have 3 copies of React Meta to draw many cards. Lack of card draw is Pippa's major weakness, and she can run out of steam very quickly the longer the game goes on. I also have 3 copies of Yapping. Yapping gains 3 influence for each of the other platforms where you have cards of the Zatsudan type, so it's a very easy card to buff in this deck, and it's very easy to turn it into a 3-bit 7 influence card, or even a 3-bit 10 influence card. I have 3 copies of Courtroom Roleplay, high value, powerful, cheap card, but doesn't synergize with Yapping. 3 copies of Marshmallows to cycle through my deck, and it's a Zatsudan card, so we'll buff Yapping. Can use it as 3 card draw with Pippa the Ripper. 2 copies of Mash Stream to stall my opponent out and limit their ability to challenge my ability to dominate the platform with content cards, so that I can use the Big Cheese action card to later gain 1 popularity on the platform. Next tier, we have 2 copies of Edgelord Behaviour, card removal to try and maintain dominance on a platform, and it's a Zatsudan for yapping buffs. 3 copies of Eater Spider. Eater Spider allows you to delete an opposing content card of 7 influence or less on the platform, then at any time I may play a content card on the same platform as this card. It removes an opposing card with less influence than the content card I just played, so it's more card removal to maintain dominance. I then have 2 copies of Clip Out of Context. I've regularly played Clip Out of Context on turn 3 thanks to having Yabbit in my opening hand and gaining multiple clash rewards. Clip Out of Context mounts more pressure on my opponent, as on a turn I play it, I can put a content card on any platform, anywhere, for 2 bits less, and as most of my content cards are 3 to 2 bits, I can flood the board again when I play this card, and I will most likely have enough bits to play more stuff. It's also a Zatsudan card, so it buffs Yapping and makes it easier to get free card draw from React Meta. I then have 3 copies of Chew on Cables, which is a must include in the Pippa deck, a 1-bit action card that sets an opposing persona's influence to 0 this clash. All opponents can't play actions this clash. The ultimate Screw You card that guarantees the win on any platform you currently have an influence advantage of. 2 copies of Big Cheese. If dominating the platform, gain 1 popularity on this platform, so you can potentially win 2 popularity in 1 clash when using this card. If you've run out of steam and need a little push to win a platform, maybe your opponent has an influence tally you can't compete with, like say Uruka, then Big Cheese will allow you to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. Finally, I have 3 copies of Potion. Potion allows you to move one persona or content card from this platform to another platform. This is used to push other content cards or personas away, to either use Big Cheese's effect or to knock very expensive, high influence cards away from the platforms you want to snipe and win clashes over. One of my favourite surprise attacks. You could also put this in the NASA deck. I expect to make many changes to these decks once the full card list is available for the game. I'll do a separate video on all 7 decks then, rather than waste time now. Thank you very much for watching.